Rod Taylor made the cover that week. But inside, they were very kind to us, too, for a brand new summer replacement show. They called the program World of Sports, but then it said Penn and Drake relays, both live. Debut, Jim McKay as host. Yes, that was the first occasion on which the program was introduced to you by a young man with a crew cut and high hopes.
I'm Jim McKay at Franklin Field in Philadelphia for the 67th annual Penn Relay Carnival. Sports, in its unending variety, unfolds on ABC's Wide World of Sports, capturing the sight and sound, the emotion, the beauty and history-making achievements wherever men gather to compete in this great wide world of athletics.
This special Crystal Anniversary edition of ABC's Wide World of Sports is brought to you by Suzuki. Forget your troubles, get on Suzuki. They're designed to be the most trouble-free motorcycles in the world. By Zebco, a Brunswick company, the folks you fish with. And by Gold Label Luxury Cigars. With Gold Label, you get 24-karat quality.
This Ford pickup is taking one tough pounding in these scenes from the movie Mr. Majestic. This Ford is a used 68 pickup, and it wasn't modified to take this terrific beating. Now, these exciting movie stunts have no bearing on normal usage, and this doesn't prove how long our 76 will last. But if you want a tough-built pickup, that's Ford. 93 out of 100 of all Ford trucks built since '63 are still on the job. So get the one that's built Ford tough.
Our family doctor's car. He's been taking care of us for years, and I've been working on his cars for years. We're professionals. He wears a stethoscope, and I wear this gold hat. Only difference is that I have to work on over 300 models, and the doc only has 2. Seriously, I depend on the doc to do his best, and he expects the same for me, so I use top-quality Napa parts. Why Napa? It's a professional's choice.
That's NAPA. We help keep America moving.
It's just another parking lot in Manhattan at 50th Street and 8th Avenue. A big parking lot taking in almost an entire city block. But 15 years ago, this was a very famous place. In fact, the most famous indoor sports arena in the world stood here, the old Madison Square Garden. We've decided to open our travels on this anniversary program at this location because I think it helps to give you an idea of how much time has passed and how many things have changed since Wide World began. For example, right back up there where you look at the back of the parking lot sign and those lights that rather weakly illuminate the lot itself, well, that's where the marquee of the old garden was, that brilliantly lit sign that might advertise on a typical weekend a track meet and the following day a doubleheader of hockey and basketball. But much time has passed and many people are gone since April 29th, 1961. Just a few months before we went on the air, the youthful John F. Kennedy took the oath as President of the United States and said these famous words.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Yes, 1961 was a very important year in the history of our times. 2.5 weeks before we went on the air, Yuri Gagarin of the Soviet Union became the first man in space. And less than a week after that, the ill-fated Bay of Pigs invasion took place. On the very day that we went on the air, April 29th, newspapers across the country were still discussing the Bay of Pigs and its aftermath, but on that same day had bigger headlines of new and ominous rumblings from Southeast Asia. On the 5th day of May, while we were in Europe doing our first foreign broadcast, Alan Shepard became the first American in space. Remember this historic flight? People were amazed when the tiny spacecraft Freedom 7 went 302 miles on a flight that took 15 minutes. Later that year, the Berlin Wall blighted the face of Europe for the first time. In September, Dag Hammarskjöld, Secretary General of the United Nations, was killed in a plane crash while pursuing the cause of peace in Africa. 61 was a tremendous year in sports, too. And I suppose the most historic single moment came right here when Roger Maris finally broke Babe Ruth's record. This was homer number 61, nestling into the right field stands at the old Yankee Stadium and into the sports record books with a controversial asterisk alongside it. Talk about how time has passed and things and people have changed. Take a look at the young man who in '61 won his second United States Amateur Golf Championship. Yes, my friends, that is Jack Nicklaus. Has any man in America changed so much in the past 15 years? As for the old Madison Square Garden, it is gone, of course, but not the garden itself. It simply took a modern form and moved 17 blocks straight down this street. The new garden, a great sports arena that actually is built on top of a railroad station. But not only the sports arenas have changed since 1961, to a great extent, the sports taste of the American people has also changed. For example, who could have imagined 15 years ago that a big place like this could be filled to capacity so that New Yorkers could get their first in-person look at an 83-pound Russian girl gymnast?
And one silver medal at the Olympics, Olga Torba.
The most exciting performer ever. The same routine as that Monday night.
Now here it comes. No margin for error. Back, Summy catch. She did it again. And watch this free drop into a hip circle. There's just no let up in this exercise. Pivot, stomach whip, drop kip, and the dismount. Olga Carter.
There she is. Well, she sure makes contact with that crowd.
It seems like yesterday when Olga was a new shooting star. Now she's queen of the hill, trying to fight off the challenge of younger athletes like Nadia Comaneci, Romania's 14-year-old marvel. This is Nadia in the same Madison Square Garden, an inch taller than Olga, 3 pounds heavier, and just as full of talent and ambition. On this occasion, she won a perfect mark of 10. Nadia Comaneci, a child on her way to grown-up fame and glory.
Gold label for the man with the Midas touch. He knows so much. He smokes Gold Label.
Gold Label Marquis, a great 15-cent cigar from the people who make great luxury cigars. Marquis, for 15 cents you get gold.
He loves Gold Label.
Simplicity's new 8-horsepower lawn tractors make picture book lawns easy as ABC. Free-floating mower action follows ground contours for anti-scalp mowing, regardless of dips or ridges. Now get Simplicity quality at a surprisingly low price. And remember, when it comes to lawn and garden care, Simplicity wrote the book. Look for your Simplicity dealer in the Yellow Pages or call toll-free.
In these 15 years of wide world, the sport of motor racing has provided us with many thrills, from Indianapolis to Le Mans to the streets of Monte Carlo. And all through that time, one name has been constant, the man who drives this race car in the year 1976, the fabulous A.J. Foyt of Houston, Texas. When we started, he was just as big a name as he is today. But the greatest fortnight of his career started with the rain-delayed finish of the Indianapolis 500 of 1967, his third Indy victory.
There's an accident on the front straightaway. There's 2, 3, 4 cars. Where's Foyt? I don't know whether he can get through or not. Hitting the wall, bouncing back across the straightaway. Foyt's only got a couple hundred yards to go, but where is he? There he is. He's gonna get through. A.J. Foyt will win the Indianapolis 500 in an incredible, thrilling finish.
2 weeks later, A.J. was in the unaccustomed surroundings of Le Mans, France at the 24-hour race. This marvelously romantic running start is a thing of the past now, but in 1967, it led to an American victory. A.J. Foyt and Dan Gurney, 2 of their country's greatest racing names, teaming to win the great endurance contest. A.J. has since said that this double victory was the greatest achievement of his racing life. It was surpassed later when the late Graham Hill of England scored motor racing's only career Triple Crown to win Indy, Le Mans, and the World Grand Prix Driving Championship in a lifetime. Here you see him leading Jim Clark through the streets of Monte Carlo in 1963.
And now they're going to come down this long straightaway at about 125 miles an hour and then into the gasometer turn. It's interesting that they take it in 2 entirely different ways. Hill there on the left starts on the outside, then cuts to the inside. Clark starts on the inside, cuts to the outside. Well, there's Clark. See, he slides out, and then Graham Hill, and he cuts on the inside and takes the lead again. Actually, on that gasometer turn, almost every time, Jim Clark takes the lead for perhaps a tenth of a second.
Graham Hill won at Monte Carlo an amazing 5 times, but the name of Jim Clark was bigger. He won 2 world titles, Indianapolis, and also a world record 25 Grand Prix races before meeting his death in the woods of West Germany. Clark's record for victories was surpassed by a fellow Scotsman, Jackie Stewart, a 3-time Monte Carlo winner, as flamboyant as Clark was quiet. Jackie won 3 world titles, 27 Grand Prix races, then joined us as a commentator. It was then only that he first viewed the infield scene at Darlington, South Carolina.
Now, this isn't Monte Carlo, but it seems almost like it could be. There's gambling going on, there's money on the table. Pretty dangerous leaving that sort of money with a Scotsman around.
You race, don't you?
Not again.
That's Jackie Stewart.
I know.
Thanks very much, my boy. Give the boy $1. Who's your favorite driver?
Bobby Allison.
Yeah? Do you know who Jackie Stewart is?
I guess he drives USAC.
USAC?
Yeah.
The American. Is he an American driver?
I believe he is. I don't know.
Why do you come to the race?
Just to watch the cars.
The race cars?
Mm-hmm.
And what else?
The boys.
And the boys?
Mm-hmm.
Does motor racing attract attractive men?
Mm-hmm. Sure does.
Well, here I am in famous Darlington downtown. This is America for me. Something totally new, something I haven't even imagined could be possible in motor racing. A new look totally. Everybody seems to be very loose. They seem to enjoy themselves. They seem to enjoy the individuality of being able to wander around without the restrictions of the grandstand. They certainly seem to enjoy themselves. Few of them seem to see the race completely. They seem, however, very happy. A wee bit full, but the beer seems to have done them a lot of good. They're very relaxed, they're enjoying the sun, and I think really they are also enjoying the motor racing.
It was at Darlington in 1965 that we saw one of the most breathtaking accidents, one from which the victim emerged uninjured.
He looks like he's going to make his move now. Look, he can't get far enough up, and those boys are in trouble. Oh, Yarborough right out of the racetrack. We can just see his car tumbling end over end, and that's the last we've seen of it. There's McQuagg, who was in the crash with him in number 24. That car's a wreck. Can't imagine what the one outside the track is. At Daytona in 1971, Maynard Troyer rolled at least 18 times in this one-of-a-kind crash. Maynard remembers only the first roll, he says. Total injuries, scratches, and a mild concussion. This is another crash that bears testimony to the tank-like construction of NASCAR racing machines. Walter Ballard tangling with Buddy Baker also at Daytona in 1972. Crashes like these in a true stock car like their own would mean certain death or serious injury. Ballard walked away. He burned his hands getting out of the car and got his eyes full of dirt. That's all. He raced again within a week and drove this car again shortly after. Like everything else, stock car racing has changed. So have the drivers, like the king of them all, Richard Petty. You'll see him in full facial hair here for a bicentennial celebration at his home in Level Cross, North Carolina.
Well, the biggest change from everybody's standpoint has been that the tracks have got bigger. We've got more bigger tracks, and the spectators we have so many more spectators than what we used to, and I think the whole racing scene has grown into a lot more of a prestigious thing than what it was 15 years ago. And I think ABC Wide World of Sports has really created a lot to help us, because they've given us a lot of exposure outside the South where we generally located. They've given us exposure all over the United States, and this gets people interested in us, and this means that we have more crowds. So we hope that in the next 15 years that we can continue to grow and that ABC stays with us.
The man is golfer Johnny Miller. The look is Johnny Miller menswear. The idea is a very smart one. At Sears, you buy each piece separately, then put together the outfits that suit you. The patterns, the solid colors all work together handsomely and at sensible prices. Johnny Miller menswear. It's a very together look. And that's America style. Exclusively in selected larger Sears stores.
If you want to learn something about fishing tackle, it pays to watch what the good fishermen are using. The Zebco One Reel. It's got the retrieve ratio you need to bring in line fast. And the smooth star drag that won't stick on you when you're horsing in a big one. Zebco One. One of the many fine reels from Zebco. Reels and rods, camping equipment, Ben Pearson Archery. From Zebco, the folks you fish with.
This is the ring at Wembley in London, England. In its own way, an historic and nostalgic evidence of the brash young man, once known as Cassius Clay. And in its own way, perhaps the beginning evidence of the nature of the young man's personality. Because it was right here, when in his young 20s and in the early 60s, that he fought Henry Cooper, then the British Empire heavyweight champion. Cooper, a left hooker, actually floored Ali, Cassius Clay then, and Cassius told the press afterwards, because he later knocked out Cooper, he told them that he had gone to the canvas because he wanted a closer look at the most beautiful lady in the world, Liz Taylor, who just happened to be sitting at ringside with Richard Burton. Hello again, everyone. I'm Howard Cosell. And at this stage of the game, on the 15th anniversary of ABC's Wide World of Sports, we thought it altogether fitting and proper to begin our recital of the Ali career right here at Wembley, where Muhammad enjoyed that moment I have just described. 15 years, and what an extraordinary and still continuing saga. A young man taken lightly at first. We, of course, began with him on Wide World of Sports 13, 14 years ago, and have documented the entirety of his career. He has been, in his own way, a landmark of our series, Wide World of Sports, and in his own way, he has been the single most important athlete of our time, transcendental to sports, a figure who became perhaps the greatest heavyweight boxing champion of all time. But two, a figure who got involved with the law, constitutional law, and a figure who got involved with the sociology of his time. One of the principal figures of the turbulent 60s, and certainly he has continued on into the perhaps more static 70s. So we want to take you back in time now, in the beginning recital of his career, to the time when he was young and in his positive prime as a fighter.
This was when Cassius Clay first won the heavyweight championship against Charles Sonny Liston. He was a tremendous underdog then, but the blinding speed of feet and hands was too much for Liston. He slit Liston's left jaw with that blow from the eye down to the corner of the mouth, and Liston did not get up for the 7th round. The next day, he said, "My name is Muhammad Ali. I am a black Muslim." And then this, Lewiston, Maine, May 25, 1965, the invisible punch, the endless count. It really went up to 24. Jersey Joe Walcott didn't really know what was happening as the referee, but Ali was still the champion. And then, November 22, 1965, the torture of the rabbit, because that's what Ali called Floyd Patterson. Finally, the referee could stand it no longer. The bout was stopped, and Patterson was thoroughly humiliated. After that, the bleeder again, Henry Cooper, Arsenal Stadium, May of '66. And Ali did away with Cooper the second time around. But he liked London at that stage of his life because this was August in London. Look at the hand speed against the Blackpool bust, Brian London. After that, Frankfurt, West Germany. The troublesome German southpaw, Karl Mildenberger, September of '66, and he couldn't put him away until the 12th round. And that right lead destroyed Mildenberger in the ultimate. And then Cleveland Williams back to the United States, Houston, Texas. Watch this. Williams knocked out in the 3rd round. That was when he introduced the double shuffle. And then Houston again, February of '67, Ernie Terrell, the torture of Terrell. What's my name?
What's my name? Because Terrell would not call him Ali.
After all that you have just seen, there was another fight yet to come. March of 1967, the place, New York's Madison Square Garden. The opponent, a man Ali seemed to genuinely like, Zora Foley, who died not too long ago in a terrible tragedy in his Arizona home. But it didn't seem that Ali wanted to hurt Foley. Finally, in an almost merciful way, he knocked him out. After that, April 28, 1967, Federal Customs Building, Houston, Texas, San Jacinto Street. Ali rejected military induction, would not take the step forward that would have made him a member of the United States Army. Within, it seemed, a matter of minutes, the boxing commissioner of the state of New York stripped Ali of his duly achieved heavyweight championship of the world, plus his license to fight. All the other jurisdictions in the country followed suit, boxing jurisdictions, I mean. And so the man was enforcedly idle for a period of 3.5 years. No arraignment, no trial, no conviction, but stripped of everything. Then, the return to boxing in 1970. We'll pick up with that story when we come back later in the show.